everyone, welcome back. It's Ms. Lopez. In this video, we're going to cover Chapter 6, Pathways that Harvest and Store Chemical Energy. This chapter is broken up into several sections. This video will focus just on Chapter 6.1. ATP and reduced coenzymes play important roles in biological energy metabolism. You can think of this video as an introduction to cell respiration. Let's get started. Energy is stored in chemical bonds and can be released and transformed by metabolic pathways. This stored energy is also known as stored potential chemical energy. The chemical energy available to do work is termed free energy. We've talked about this when we did our free energy flipped activity. There are 5 principles governing metabolic pathways. Number 1, chemical transformations occur in a series of intermediate reactions that form a metabolic pathway. You can think of these as those biochemical pathways we talked about earlier in the unit. Remember with those biochemical pathways that each reaction is catalyzed by a specific enzyme. Most of these metabolic pathways are similar in all organisms. In eukaryotes, many metabolic pathways occur inside specific organelles. This is the concept of compartmentalization, which we talked about back in Unit 2. Each metabolic pathway is controlled by enzymes that can either be inhibited or activated. Please refer back to your flipped biochemical pathways activity that we did earlier this unit. In cells, energy transforming reactions are often coupled. An energy releasing or exergonic reaction is coupled to an energy requiring endergonic reaction. Remember back to our flipped free energy assignment that exergonic reactions have a negative delta G, and the endergonic reactions have a positive delta G. So the energy that is released from your exergonic reactions can be used or input into the endergonic reactions. And it's 2 molecules that are going to help facilitate or make this happen: ATP and NADH. Adenosine triphosphate, also known as ATP, is a kind of energy currency in the cells. Energy is released by exergonic reactions. The energy released by exergonic reactions is stored in the bonds of ATP. So the bonds are potential energy. When ATP is hydrolyzed, in other words, broken, free energy is released, and that free energy is used to drive endergonic reactions. We've already looked at the structure of ATP when we talked about the sodium-potassium pump, but it doesn't hurt just to remind us of what it is and what it looks like. The first part is the adenosine. Adenosine is a 5-carbon sugar and a nitrogenous base. The other parts of the ATP molecule are the phosphate groups. And as the name implies, tri means 3 phosphate groups. And with that 3rd phosphate group, there is energy available in the chemical bond, which is represented by this line right here. Let's look at how the interaction of exergonic and endergonic reactions takes place. With your exergonic reactions, there is a net release of energy. These processes include cell respiration and catabolism, the breaking down of substances. They will have a negative delta G. Endergonic reactions, on the other hand, are reactions that require the input of energy. They include active transport, cell movements, anabolism. Any process that builds molecules is going to require the input of energy, and therefore they have a positive delta G. So let's look at how ATP mediates these 2 reactions. Let's start with an ADP molecule, adenosine diphosphate. Here is a lone phosphate group that could be attached to this ADP. However, that's going to require the input of energy. So these reactions over here, such as cell respiration or the breakdown of larger products, when they release energy, that energy is going to be used to attach that phosphate group to this ADP, forming ATP. And that's the high energy molecule with energy stored in its chemical bond. Then this molecule is going to be used to drive or provide the energy for other reactions. This can be something like photosynthesis, or it can be the building of muscle, or a muscle movement, or the sodium-potassium pump. When this happens, that ATP is broken down, that last bond is broken, that phosphate group is separated, and now the molecule is back to ADP and inorganic phosphate, and this cycle can continue again with ATP acting as an intermediary between exergonic reactions and endergonic reactions. Energy can also be transferred by the transfer of electrons in reduction oxidation, or what's known as redox reactions. Reduction is the gain of one or more electrons, and oxidation is the loss of one or more electrons. So a way that many students remember the difference between these is a mnemonic device that goes like this. It is oil rig, which stands for oxidation is loss of electrons. Reduction is gain of electrons. Use whatever mnemonic device to help you remember the difference between oxidation and reduction. Oxidation and reduction always occur together. You can't have something gain electrons unless something else has lost those electrons. Let's follow the pathway of these electrons. You can see here that compound A has these two blue electrons, and what's going to happen is compound A is going to donate them in a reaction to compound B. So you'll notice up here that compound B didn't have the electrons to begin with, and then at the end of the reaction, they do. You'll also notice that A started with some electrons, and then at the end of the reaction, there are no electrons present anymore. In that case, what has happened is A has undergone oxidation, and B has undergone reduction. It is also useful to think of oxidation and reduction in terms of the gain or loss of hydrogen. This is because hydrogen will accompany the electrons as they're being transferred. So the transfer of hydrogen atoms involves the transfer of electrons. Remember that hydrogen is a proton plus an electron. Therefore, when a molecule loses a hydrogen atom, it becomes oxidized. Another molecule that helps in the transfer of these electrons as these reactions are taking place is coenzyme NAD. It is a key electron carrier in these redox reactions we are going to look at for cell respiration. NAD plus is the oxidized form of this molecule, and NADH is the reduced form. So let's look at this cycle again. You have molecule A, which has a hydrogen group attached to it. And what's going to happen is, as this molecule is undergoing a reaction, this coenzyme, NAD+, is going to help the process by taking this H hydrogen away from the A molecule, and it is going to pick it up. It's going to pick up that hydrogen. So here's your NAD+. It is going to pick up that hydrogen, and NAD+ is now reduced to NADH. So this is the reduced stage. Now, in order for NAD+ to be reduced to NADH, molecule A had to get oxidized, and now you can see here it's missing that H group. NADH is then going to be able to take that hydrogen, which is just the proton and the electron, and it's going to be able to donate it to another molecule, molecule B. And once NADH donates the molecule to, or the hydrogen to molecule B, NADH is oxidized back to NAD+, and molecule B is now reduced because it now contains that hydrogen group. And so this cycle of NAD+ reduced down to NADH and then oxidized back to NAD+ is a very important cycle that occurs during cell respiration. So, energy is released in catabolism by oxidation and trapped by reduction of coenzymes such as NADH. So that energy is being, think of it as being stored in a temporary battery, and that battery is that NADH. Energy for anabolic processes is also supplied by another battery, which is ATP. Most energy-releasing reactions produce NADH, but most energy-consuming reactions require ATP. So how do we bridge this? How do we take energy that is captured in that NADH and use it to make the ATP that's going to be required by energy-consuming reactions such as a muscle movement or the sodium-potassium pump? The answer to that is a process known as oxidative phosphorylation. And we're going to be able to take the energy from NADH and use it to produce ATP. That process is called cell respiration, and that is the next topic of our notes. This concludes the end of Chapter 6, Part 1 on your introduction to cell respiration. Thanks for watching.